I thought my worst problems were just money and bills, until I uncovered secrets that shattered my entire life. Lies, betrayals, and a past darker than I ever imagined. If you had asked me a year ago what my biggest problem was, I probably would have said student loans, or maybe trying to find a full-time job after college. You know, normal 20-something struggles. But now, I'd say the biggest problem I ever had started on my little brother's birthday. He had just turned 12, and we were throwing him a small party in the backyard. Nothing fancy. A folding table from the garage, store-bought cake, some dollar store decorations. It wasn't much, but he smiled like it was Disneyland. That kid could find joy in a cardboard box, I swear. My mom was in the kitchen pretending everything was fine, like she always did. I was the oldest, 23 at the time, and had been helping out with bills since Dad walked out 2 years earlier. Back then, I worked part-time at a car rental place while finishing my degree. Every paycheck I got, I handed part of it to her, rent, groceries, whatever the family needed. It wasn't much, but I thought we were scraping by okay. Until that day. After the party, I went to the bank to pull out some cash. My card got declined. I thought maybe it was a glitch. But when I checked my account, it was nearly empty. I'm talking $2 and some change. Now I know I'm not the most organized guy in the world, but I track my direct deposits. I know I had over $800 in there last time I checked, 3 days ago. My stomach dropped. At first, I figured maybe it was fraud. Maybe someone got my card info online. I called the bank to file a report, expecting them to say something like, "Yeah, someone used it at a gas station in another state." But the charges? They were all local. Grocery stores. A beauty salon. A payday loan place. And the weirdest one, a chain motel on the edge of town. That's when I knew. It wasn't some random thief. It was someone I knew. I didn't want to believe it, but when I got home and checked the computer, I found the answer. My mom had access to my online banking. I'd helped her pay bills before. The IP address matched our house. I didn't confront her that night. I just sat there, sick to my stomach, listening to her hum in the kitchen while she washed dishes. My brother was upstairs watching cartoons, and she acted like everything was fine. Normal. Happy. The next day, I waited until she was alone. I sat her down and said, "Mom, did you use my bank account?" She looked up at me like I just slapped her. "What? No. Why would I do that?" I told her everything, every charge, every login, the IP match. Her face fell. She didn't even try to deny it after that. Just lowered her head and said, "I needed to borrow it." "Borrow?" I snapped. "You emptied my whole account." She started crying, saying how hard things had been since Dad left. That the bills were piling up, that she didn't want to lose the house, and that she was going to pay me back. Eventually. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something didn't add up. I asked her what she needed a motel room for. She hesitated, just for a second, but I saw it. That flicker in her eyes. The lie forming before she said it. "Oh, I needed a break. I was overwhelmed." That sounded like total BS. And the more I thought about it, the more I started to wonder, what else had she been hiding? That night, I did something I never thought I'd do. I snooped through her room. I felt horrible doing it, but something was gnawing at me. And sure enough, I found a small black notebook tucked in her sock drawer. Inside? A list of debts, most of them to people I didn't recognize. Next to each name was a dollar amount, and some of them were huge. One of them said, "Brick $5,000. Another said, "Tina, don't answer phone. $1,200. There were over a dozen names. Some had stars next to them. Others were crossed out. The scariest part? One entry just said, "Pawn shop jewelry, 3 pieces, / loan due, September 12th. That was 3 days away. My stomach sank when I realized what she must have pawned. Grandma's wedding ring. A gold necklace Dad gave me when I graduated. And I'd bet money she didn't ask before taking them. At that point, I knew I had 2 choices, either pretend it didn't happen and let her keep spiraling, or confront her again and risk blowing up the whole family. I chose the latter. And that's when everything truly began to unravel. So, I confronted her again. This time, I didn't hold anything back. I showed her the notebook. I asked her point blank who Rick and Tina were, what she pawned, and why she was taking motel rooms behind our backs. She didn't cry this time. She just stared at the floor and whispered, "I didn't want you to find out." "Find out what?" Her eyes flicked up. "That I messed everything up." Turns out, she'd been taking out small loans from random people in town ever since my dad left. Not just from banks or payday places, but from acquaintances sketchy. Friends of friends. And yes, even from a guy she met at church who helped people out with cash under the table. She said Rick was one of those guys. At first, she'd borrowed just enough to cover the mortgage payment 1 month. But when that wasn't enough, she borrowed more. Then again. And again. And the motel? That was for Rick. She didn't say it, but I put the pieces together fast. She was paying him in more than money. That made me feel sick. My mom was using herself as collateral just to keep a roof over our heads, while stealing from me to do it. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw something. But I didn't. I just stood there while she broke down, sobbing into her hands like a child. And for a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. But then I remembered my empty account. The way she lied. The way she looked me in the eye and pretended nothing was wrong while spending my money like it was hers. I told her I wanted her to pay me back. Every cent. She nodded, still crying, and said, I will. I promise. Of course, that didn't happen. 2 days later, she disappeared. I woke up, made coffee, and realized she wasn't home. Her car was gone. Her room was a mess, drawers half open like she left in a hurry. I tried calling, straight to voicemail. I checked with her job, a part-time front desk gig at a dentist's office, and they said she hadn't shown up that morning either. Just like that, my mom vanished. I filed a missing person report after 24 hours, but the police weren't too interested. Adults leave sometimes, they said. Maybe she needed a break. Maybe she'd come back. But I knew better. She ran. She took the little money we had left and bailed. No goodbye. No note. Just gone. That left me with a 12-year-old brother, a house with a mortgage I had no way to pay, and a pawn shop ticket that expired the next day. And no one else to help. I called my aunt, Mom's sister. She lived 3 hours away, and they hadn't spoken in years, but I was desperate. She was shocked, but not surprised. She's always been like this, she said. Addicted to drama. Addicted to running away. She offered to take my brother for a little while, just until I figured things out. But here's the thing, I didn't want to split up. He'd already been abandoned by one parent. I wasn't about to let him lose another. So I made a decision. I quit my job. Told my manager I needed to take care of my brother full-time for now. He understood, but it still hurt. I had no income. No backup plan. Just a kid in a collapsing house. That night, I went to the pawn shop. I had $117 in cash, everything I'd scraped together by selling my gaming console, my college textbooks, and a spare car battery I found in the garage. The man behind the counter looked at the ticket and shook his head. 3 pieces. That'll be $540. I begged him. Told him it was my grandma's ring. That it had sentimental value. That I'd bring more money later. He didn't care. I got people waiting to buy it, he said. If you don't pay the full amount by noon tomorrow, it's gone. So I did something stupid. I called Rick. His number was in my mom's notebook. Next to it, in her sloppy handwriting, was a note. Don't call unless desperate. Well, I was desperate. He answered on the second ring. Yeah? My name's Josh. I think you knew my mom? Claire? There was a pause. Then, what do you want? I need a loan. Just a short one. To buy something back from a pawn shop. Another pause. Then a slow chuckle. Like mother, like son. He agreed to meet, in person. Said he didn't do business over the phone. Told me to come to the same motel where Mom used to go. Everything in me screamed not to go. But I went anyway. Because I had to save that ring. It was the last thing we had left of my grandmother. And that meeting? That night? That was when I learned the truth about my mom. About Rick. And about a secret that would blow up everything I thought I knew about our family. I parked at the edge of the motel lot, the kind with flickering neon signs and faded parking lines. Room 107. That's where Rick told me to meet him. As I walked up to the door, I felt like I was carrying 100 pounds of nerves in my chest. I knocked once. Then twice. He opened the door halfway. You're Claire's boy? He asked. I nodded. He looked me up and down, like he was sizing me up. He was older than I expected. Mid-50s, maybe, with a rough face and a tan that looked earned. There was something hard in his eyes. Not crazy. Just used to getting what he wanted. I don't usually lend to kids, he said, stepping aside. But you're here, so let's talk. Inside, the room smelled like cigarettes and air freshener fighting for dominance. A single lamp lit the table, which had an envelope sitting on it. I'll cut to the chase, he said, sitting down. You need $500? $540. He nodded. Collateral? I don't have anything. Then I guess you're out of luck. I panicked. Please. It's for my grandma's ring. It belonged to my mom. She pawned it. I just want to buy it back before it's gone. Rick stared at me for a long second. Then he said something that made my stomach turn. Claire told me you weren't like her. I froze. What do you mean? She said you were the good one. The smart one. Not a liar like her. I didn't know what to say to that. He leaned back in the chair and sighed. Look, kid. I helped your mom out because she said she was gonna pay me back with interest. She never did. And then she disappeared. She owed me close to 10 grand now. My eyes went wide. 10,000? Yeah, he said flatly. And you know what the funny part is? She never told you why. Why what? Why your dad really left. My heart started pounding. He pulled out a pack of cigarettes and lit one, exhaling like he enjoyed the drama. Then he said, "Your mom cheated on him. For almost a year. With a guy she met at the casino." That hit like a gut punch. My dad and mom had always fought, yeah, but I thought he left because he couldn't handle the stress. The bills. The pressure. He wasn't a good dad, but I never suspected that. Rick saw my reaction and just nodded. "She wrecked everything. Then came crying to me." I couldn't speak. "But I'm gonna give you a shot," he said, pulling the envelope forward. $540. No interest. Just one condition." "What?" "You find your mother. And you tell her Rick wants his money." I stared at him. "That's it." He smiled. For now. I didn't trust him. Not even a little. But I needed that money. So I took it. The next morning, I walked into the pawn shop with the envelope in my jacket and a knot in my stomach. The guy behind the counter didn't even flinch when I pulled out the cash. He slid the jewelry box across the counter like it meant nothing. Inside were 3 pieces: Grandma's ring, a gold chain, and a bracelet I didn't even recognize. But they were ours again. For the first time in days, I felt like I could breathe. I came home to find my brother sitting on the couch, watching cartoons. I sat beside him, handed him the jewelry box, and said, "We got them back." He didn't really get it. But he smiled anyway. Then he said something I'll never forget. "Did you find Mom?" I looked at him and shook my head. He stared at the TV, quiet for a moment. Then, "I think she left because of me." That broke me. I pulled him into a hug and said, "No. No, she didn't. She left because she didn't know how to stay." That night I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about what Rick said. About my dad leaving because of Mom's affair. I didn't know if it was true, but if it was, then my whole idea of what happened between them was wrong. I decided to find out for myself. So I did something I hadn't done in a year. I called my dad. I stared at the dad contact in my phone for almost an hour before pressing the call button. We hadn't spoken since he left. Not on birthdays. Not on holidays. Not even when I graduated college. That silence wasn't just his fault. I was angry for a long time. Angry that he left us with bills and no closure. Angry that he never looked back. But now I needed answers. The phone rang 5 times before he picked up. "Hello?" I almost hung up. But then I cleared my throat. "Hey. It's Josh." There was a pause. A long one. "Josh. Wow. I didn't expect to hear from you." "Yeah. I didn't expect to be calling either." Another pause. "You okay?" he asked. "Is everything all right?" That question made my throat tighten. It was the first time he'd asked how I was doing in over 2 years. "No," I said. "Not really." I told him everything. Not just about the stolen money or the pawn shop, but about Mom disappearing. About Rick. About the notebook and the debts. I left out the motel part, but I told him enough. When I mentioned Rick's name, my dad went quiet. "You said Rick?" he asked carefully. "Yeah. I know him." I sat up straighter. "You know him?" "Yeah. He's not just some guy she borrowed money from. He used to be her boyfriend. While we were still married." The phone nearly slipped from my hand. "So the affair thing, that was real?" "Yes," he said quietly. "I found out about it just a few months before I left. I tried to stay for you and your brother. I really did. But when I confronted her, she didn't even deny it. I didn't know what to say." He continued. "She wasn't always like this. But after her mom died, something changed. She started gambling. Lying. She borrowed money to cover other debts, and the more she fell behind, the more she lied to both of us. I couldn't keep living in that mess." I just sat there, staring at the wall, trying to process everything. Then I asked him something I never thought I would. "Can we meet?" He agreed. We met the next day at a diner halfway between our towns. When I walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. He looked older, more tired. Like the last 2 years had weighed heavy on him too. But when he saw me, he stood up fast and hugged me like he was afraid I'd vanish. We sat, ordered coffee, and talked for hours. He told me things I never knew, how they'd taken out a second mortgage without telling me, how they fought about money almost every night, how she once pawned her wedding ring and claimed it had been lost. And then he handed me something I didn't expect, a letter. "She left this for you," he said. "But I never gave it to you. I didn't think it would help at the time." It was in Mom's handwriting. I recognized it instantly. I unfolded it and read the first few lines. "Josh, if you're reading this, it means I probably left. I'm sorry. I never wanted things to get this bad. I wanted to protect you from my mistakes, but they swallowed me whole." I stopped reading. My hands were shaking too hard. Dad put a hand on my shoulder. "You didn't deserve any of this, son. None of it's your fault." I nodded, but I didn't feel better. Because even with all the answers, I still had a 12-year-old brother at home. A house I couldn't afford. And no idea what would happen next. That night, I went home and told my brother everything. Not the full details, but enough. Enough to help him stop blaming himself. Then I made a new plan. I didn't know where Mom was, but I was going to find her. Not to yell. Not even to punish her. But because I needed her to face what she left behind. The search for my mom started with something simple: receipts. She hadn't taken much with her when she vanished, just her purse and the old Ford Focus she drove everywhere. But in the mess she left behind, I found a wrinkled gas station receipt tucked in her bathroom trash can. It was dated 2 days before she left and showed a fill-up at a station off the highway near the state line. I followed the lead. I drove out there the next morning, heart racing the whole way. When I pulled into the station, I didn't expect much. But I got lucky. The guy behind the counter said he remembered her. She was in a rush, he told me. Kept checking over her shoulder like someone was following her. Paid in cash, full tank, left fast. I asked if there were cameras. He nodded and pulled the footage from me. And there she was, clear as day, filling up the tank, hair tied back, looking like she hadn't slept in days. After she pulled out of the lot, she headed west. There weren't many places west. Mostly rural towns and a few off-the-map communities where people go when they want to disappear. I drove for hours, stopping in every roadside diner and gas station, asking if anyone had seen her. I was ready to give up when I pulled into a quiet town called Silver Grove, population 2,000 and change. And at the third stop, a waitress said, "Yeah, I think I saw her. Checked into that little weekly rate motel down the road." My heart stopped. I drove there immediately. The manager, a guy named Hank, was behind the counter watching a game show on a tiny TV. I showed him a picture of my mom. He squinted, then nodded slowly. "Yeah, she was here. Stayed for about a week. Paid in cash, room 203. Left a few days ago." "Did she say where she was going?" He shrugged. "Nope. But she left something behind. I figured she'd be back for it, but it's still here." He pulled out a shoebox from behind the desk. Inside was a stack of envelopes, all addressed to different names. But one of them had my name on it, written in her unmistakable handwriting. I opened it right there, hands trembling. "Josh, if you found this, then you're smarter than I gave you credit for. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect you to understand. But I need you to know I never stopped loving you or your brother. I ran because I knew if I stayed, I'd only drag you both down with me. Please protect him. Keep him safe. I'm sorry for everything. Mom." No return address. No clue where she went next. Just another dead end. I drove home in silence, the letter sitting on the passenger seat like it was made of lead. When I walked in the door, my brother was sitting on the couch eating cereal straight from the box. "Did you find her?" he asked, his mouth full. I nodded slowly. "Kind of. She left again. But she's okay. She left this for us." I handed him the note. He read it quietly, then folded it up and held onto it like it was something sacred. "I miss her," he said. "Yeah," I said. "Me too." Over the next few weeks, things got harder. The mortgage company called almost daily. The bills piled up. I applied for emergency aid, food stamps, anything that could help. My dad sent some money when he could, but he wasn't in a great place either. I picked up temp jobs, cleaning offices, moving furniture, even delivering groceries late at night just to keep the lights on. One night, after a long delivery shift, I came home to find my brother sitting at the kitchen table with an envelope. He looked up at me and said, "This was taped to the front door." Inside was $800 in cash. No note. No name. Just cash. I didn't know what to make of it, until I noticed the handwriting on the envelope. The way the J was looped. It was hers. Mom had been here. That envelope haunted me. Not because it was money, we needed it badly, but because of what it meant. She'd been at the house. While we were gone. While my brother was probably at school and I was out trying to scrape together another $20 delivering food. She'd stood at our door, left cash, and vanished again. Why didn't she knock? Why didn't she wait? Part of me wanted to believe she was trying to help without causing more pain. But another part, the part that remembered the lies, the theft, the pawned jewelry, wondered if she was still just running away from the wreckage she caused. I kept the envelope. Didn't spend a dime of it. I told myself it was out of principle, but really, it was guilt. I didn't want to use blood money, even if it came in the form of quiet help. A few days later, something even stranger happened. There was a knock on the door. A hard, impatient knock, the kind that sounds like it's demanding attention, not asking for it. I opened the door to find 2 men standing on my porch. Both in suits. Both holding ID badges. "Joshua Taylor?" the taller one asked. "Yeah? I'm Agent Morgan. This is Agent Patel. We're with the FBI. Can we come in?" My stomach dropped. What's this about?" "It's regarding your mother, Claire Taylor. We need to ask you some questions." I let them in. My hands were shaking the whole time. We sat at the kitchen table, The same table where I'd eaten cereal with my brother that morning, and they laid it out. My mother wasn't just in debt. She was wanted. For fraud. For wire transfer scams. For identity theft. And possibly for working with a group that laundered money through small businesses and pawn shops across state lines. I felt like the room was spinning. She used your bank account to transfer money that didn't belong to her, Agent Patel said. Whether you knew it or not, that makes you a person of interest. I sat there speechless. She used my account? Like how? Agent Morgan nodded. We believe she accessed your account using your information and transferred funds from multiple sources under fake identities. The motel stays, the loan applications, even the fake bills, all part of a larger pattern. We have reason to believe she's been doing this for years. Quietly. Under aliases. She's not a criminal, I said. She's just messed up. She's both, Patel said flatly. People who are desperate do desperate things. That doesn't mean they aren't dangerous. They handed me a business card and told me to call if I heard from her. Then they left. Just like that. I sat there for a long time, staring at the wall. I wanted to cry. But I didn't. I had to be strong, for my brother. That night, I finally told him the truth. Not all the details. Just enough for him to know that Mom wasn't coming back soon. He cried quietly in his room. And I sat outside his door the whole night, just in case he needed me. The next morning, I found another envelope on the porch. No knock. No note. Just cash again, this time, $2,000. She was still out there. Watching. Listening. Maybe even reading our mail. I didn't call the FBI. Not yet. I didn't know why. Maybe I was protecting her. Maybe I was protecting us. But that same day, the betrayal I never saw coming knocked the wind out of me. I got home from a delivery shift and found my aunt sitting on our porch. My dad's sister. The one who barely spoke to us, ever since the divorce. I hadn't seen her in years. Hey Josh, she said awkwardly. Can we talk? We sat in the living room, and she got straight to the point. Your dad's sick. Really sick. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. It hit like a punch to the gut. No, I said. No, he was just here a few weeks ago. He didn't tell you. I shook my head. He didn't want to worry you, she said. But the doctors say it's aggressive. He's in the hospital now. She paused. He put your name down as next of kin. I felt like I couldn't breathe. In the middle of all this, my missing mom, my broken bank account, the FBI, I was about to lose my dad too. I didn't even remember agreeing. But next thing I knew, I was driving 3 hours to the hospital, barely able to see through the tears. When I walked into the room, he smiled at me. Weak. Tired. But still my dad. Hey kid, he said. Didn't expect to see you so soon. I didn't expect to be here. I whispered. He reached out and took my hand. I need to tell you something before it's too late, he said. And what he told me next would shake me to the core. My dad's hand felt cold in mine, the kind of cold that tells you there might not be many tomorrows left. The machines around him beeped softly. A nurse passed in the hallway, but all I could hear was his breathing, and the weight in his voice. There's something I have to tell you, Josh, he said, staring at the ceiling like he couldn't bear to look me in the eye. I wasn't just trying to protect you from your mom when I left. I waited. She didn't just cheat on me. She blackmailed me. What? I blinked. What are you talking about? He coughed, his breath shallow, but he kept going. She found something in my office one night. Old tax records. Some consulting cash I never reported, freelance stuff from when you were a baby. I was young and dumb. I didn't report it. Should've. She held on to it. I felt my stomach drop. She told me if I ever tried to take you boys, she'd report me for tax fraud. Said she'd ruin me. And maybe I deserved it. But I didn't want you or your brother to grow up without one stable parent. So I walked. My throat tightened. You let her win? I thought I was doing the right thing, he said quietly. But then I heard from people, how she was struggling. I sent money when I could. I had a private P.O. box in town just for her. I never stopped caring. I just didn't know how to come back. You should have fought for us, I said, my voice shaking. I know, he whispered. I live with that every day. There was silence. Then he said, check the P.O. box. It's under the name Thomas Blake. Unit 412. I've been sending letters. Cash. Even left instructions for what to do, if something happened to me. That was the moment I realized just how much he tried to do behind the scenes. And just how alone I was about to be. He passed away 3 days later. I was with him. I held his hand as he went. And I cried like I hadn't cried in years. Not because he died. But because it felt like I was losing my last connection to the truth. After the funeral, I went straight to the P.O. box. The clerk handed me a bundle of mail, thick, weathered, stuffed into a rubber band. I opened the first envelope in the parking lot. Inside was a letter from Dad, dated almost 6 months ago. Josh, if you're reading this, I probably didn't get the chance to tell you everything in person. I've been keeping this box because I didn't know how to talk to you face to face without breaking down. But I want you to know I've been trying to take care of things in my own way. Inside these envelopes, you'll find documentation about your mother, her debts, her aliases. And something else. A key. It belongs to a safety deposit box at Community Bank, under my name. There's something in there you should have. I flipped through the rest of the mail, envelopes filled with receipts, court documents, photocopies of credit reports. There were aliases I didn't recognize. Megan Ross, Janelle Moore A. Becker. All tied to my mother. All part of a tangled web of fraud, debt, and fake lives. And at the bottom of the bundle? A small silver key taped to a card. 2 days later, I walked into Community Bank with the key. They checked my ID and led me to the back, where an older vault guard pulled out a narrow safety deposit box and handed it to me. I opened it right there in the little viewing room. Inside was a folder, a flash drive, and a will. My father had left everything, what little he had, to me and my brother. The house he'd moved into after the divorce. A modest savings account. And something else. Power of attorney over my mother's affairs if she was found mentally unfit or charged with a felony. It hit me all at once. He wasn't just preparing to die. He was preparing to protect us, even in death. I took the flash drive home and plugged it in. It was filled with scanned files, photos, and emails, some from Mom to people under different names. One folder was titled Claire's Deals, and had screenshots of online transactions, including ones linked to my bank account. My name was all over them. She hadn't just used me. She'd set me up. I called the FBI the next day. I handed over the drive. The letters. The aliases. Everything. They didn't say much, but I saw the way they looked at me change. Less like a suspect. More like a witness. Maybe even a victim. Agent Morgan said quietly, "You may have just saved yourself a federal charge." And then he added, "This is bigger than we thought." After I turned everything over to the FBI, the tone shifted. They started calling me more regularly. Agent Morgan would update me, nothing too specific, but enough to let me know they were moving. Tracking her. Building a case. They believed she was part of something bigger now, a network of low-level scammers and identity thieves that had operated under the radar for years. Mom wasn't just a small-time con. She was part of a ring. And thanks to the files my dad had collected, they were closing in. "Don't tell anyone you've spoken to us again," Morgan warned. "If she contacts you, call us immediately. No direct contact. She might be desperate." I didn't sleep much after that. My mom was being hunted by the FBI. And they wanted to use me to get to her. I was angry, sure, but I was also scared. Scared of what might happen if she came back. Scared of what might happen if she didn't. And then, she did come back. Not in person. But through a burner phone. I got the text late at night. "Josh! It's me. Please don't tell them. I need to explain. Meet me tomorrow. 6 p.m., Willow Creek Park. Near the old bridge. Come alone." I stared at that message for a long time. Then I did what I'd promised. I called the FBI. They asked me to meet her anyway. To wear a wire. It felt like something out of a movie. They strapped a tiny mic to my chest, gave me a fake wallet, and followed me from a distance in an unmarked car. I arrived at the park 10 minutes early. The old bridge crossed a dried-up creek bed, barely wide enough for a bike, let alone a car. It was the kind of place we used to walk when I was a kid. When things were normal. She showed up 5 minutes late. Hood up. Sunglasses on. Hair dyed black and cut short. But it was her. She sat on the bench next to me like a stranger. Quiet at first. Just breathing. Then she whispered, "Are they listening?" I didn't answer. She sighed. "I know I messed up. But I didn't mean for it to get this far." I stayed quiet, letting her talk. She spilled everything. How it started with small debts. How she got in with the wrong people. How she thought she could control it, keep it from reaching us. But the lies snowballed, and eventually, the only way to stay ahead was to pull us into the mess. "I was going to come clean," she said. "But then your dad started digging. I knew he'd go to the police. You used my name," I said quietly. "You almost ruined my life." "I know," she whispered. "And I'll never be able to make it right. But I wanted you to know I still love you. I love your brother. I never meant to leave you behind." At that moment, she reached into her coat pocket, and I swear my heart stopped. But all she pulled out was a photo. It was of me and my brother. From years ago. At the beach. "I carry this everywhere," she said, tears rolling down her cheeks. "Even now." That's when the agents moved in. They didn't yell. They didn't draw weapons. They just calmly approached and told her she was under arrest. She didn't fight. Didn't even look surprised. She just handed me the photo, looked at me with those tired, sunken eyes and said, "Take care of him." And just like that, they took her away. The next few weeks were a blur. I was called in for depositions. My brother had to be interviewed, but they handled it gently. Social services got involved, but because I was over 21, had a job again, and a clean record, they let me retain custody of him. Still, I knew we couldn't keep living the way we were. We needed stability. And that's when someone I never expected reached out. My dad's old business partner, Tom. We'd met once, years ago, when I was a kid. I barely remembered him, but apparently, he and Dad had stayed in contact. Dad had told him about what was going on before he died, and in his will, there was a request for Tom to watch out for the boys. Tom offered me a job. A full-time position at his logistics company. Good pay. Benefits. Flexibility so I could still be there for my brother. "You've been through hell," he said. "Let me help you climb out of it." I accepted. I didn't want charity, but this wasn't charity. It was rescue. The night before I started my new job, I sat on the back steps with my little brother. He leaned against me and asked, "Is it over now?" I thought about everything, the debts, the lies, the FBI agents, the funeral, the wire, the photo. And I said, "It's not over. But we're finally moving forward." And we were. For the first time in a long time. The trial didn't happen right away. After my mom's arrest, the FBI built their case for nearly 6 months. Turns out, she was connected to over a dozen financial crimes across 3 states. Some were small, fake names on loan apps. Others were bigger, fraudulent tax returns, identity theft, and money laundering. They tried to make a deal. But she refused. She wanted to plead guilty. No jury. No drama. When I asked her lawyer why, he just shrugged. She said she's tired of running. So one cold morning in January, I sat in the back of a federal courtroom, watching my mom in an orange jumpsuit, wrists cuffed in front of her, face pale and empty. She didn't look at me once. The judge read the charges, then asked if she had anything to say. She stood, hands trembling. "I don't have excuses," she said. "Only regrets. I hurt people I loved. I hurt my kids. I spent so long lying that I forgot who I was. I deserve whatever comes next." She was sentenced to 8 years in federal prison. No parole. Just 8 long years. The courtroom emptied fast after that. Her lawyer gave me a sad look and a nod before disappearing into the hallway. And then it was just me, standing there alone, wondering how it all came to this. The months that followed were quieter. I worked full-time at Tom's company. Moved my brother and me into a small 2-bedroom rental closer to the school. Nothing fancy, but it was clean and safe. He made friends again. Started smiling more. I took parenting classes and officially became his legal guardian with help from a pro bono lawyer Tom connected me with. We even got a dog. A clumsy rescue mutt named Lucky who instantly became my brother's best friend. And somehow, life kept moving forward. But just when I thought we were finally free from the past, something unexpected showed up in the mail. A letter. From prison. It was from my mom. I stared at it for a full day before I opened it. Inside was a 5-page handwritten letter, shaky and tear-stained in places. It didn't start with an apology. It didn't even start with, "Dear Josh." It started with a story. About my grandfather. Your grandfather, my father, was a con man. Not like me. Worse. He taught me everything I knew about hiding, lying, using people. I hated him for it. But in the end, I became like him. She wrote about growing up with fear and secrets. About stealing from classmates in middle school just to buy lunch. About how she swore she'd never end up like her parents, but somehow did anyway. When I met your father, I thought I was getting out. But you can't run from rot when it's already in your bones. Then she wrote something that hit harder than anything else. I used you. I hurt you. And I will live with that for the rest of my life. But the only thing worse than what I did is knowing that I passed this legacy down to you. That's what I'm most sorry for. That I let my damage spill over into you and your brother. If you never write back, I understand. But if there's any part of you that still remembers who I was before all this, tell your brother I loved him. Tell him I was sorry. I read that letter at least a dozen times. And I cried. Not because I forgave her. But because, for the first time, it felt like she wasn't lying. I didn't write back. Not right away. But I did read that last paragraph to my brother, word for word. He didn't say anything for a long time. Then he looked up and asked, "Do you think she meant it?" "I don't know," I said. "But I think it's a start." He nodded and went back to playing with Lucky, his little fingers tangled in the dog's ears. And for the first time in a long time, I felt something close to peace. Not closure. Not healing. But peace. A year passed. 1 whole year since the trial. Since the sentence. Since I'd read that letter. A lot had changed. My brother turned 13. He started shaving, just barely, and got into basketball. We celebrated his birthday at a bowling alley with a few friends and a cookie cake that said, "To the best little brother ever." He smiled so wide I thought his face would crack. As for me, I got promoted. I was now overseeing logistics for our entire district, 15 drivers and 3 warehouses. The hours were long, But the pay covered everything: rent, groceries, school supplies, even a little in savings. I started sleeping better. The nightmares stopped. And for the first time in years, the idea of having a future didn't scare me. One Saturday morning, I found another letter in the mailbox. Also from prison. This time, I didn't hesitate to open it. It was shorter. Simpler. But it ended with a question I never expected. Would you ever bring your brother to visit me? Just once. I understand if not. But I'd like to see what hope looks like. I read it 3 times. I didn't have an answer. Not right away. So I talked to my brother about it. He was quiet. Thoughtful. Then he said, I want to see her. Just to know if she's real. And so, 2 weeks later, we made the drive. The federal facility was cold and beige and smelled like bleach and disappointment. The check-in process took forever. They patted me down, scanned my ID, and led us into a visiting room that felt like it was holding its breath. When she walked in, my brother's eyes went wide. He hadn't seen her in over a year, and she looked older, smaller, like the weight of what she did had finally caught up to her. She sat down across from us and smiled carefully. Hi, she said. You've grown. My brother didn't say anything. He just nodded. I spoke first. He wanted to see you. I'm here because I thought maybe he deserved that chance. I'm glad, she said softly. Thank you. We sat in awkward silence for a minute before my brother finally asked, Are you getting better? She blinked, surprised. Yeah, she said. I think I am. I joined a recovery program. I'm working in the prison library. I read a lot now. Right too. She looked at me. I know I'll never undo what I did. But I still want to be someone you're not ashamed to be related to. My brother looked at her for a long time. Then he did something I didn't expect. He stood up and hugged her. Not for long. Not tight. But it was something. And it broke her. She sobbed into his shoulder, whispering, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Like it was a prayer. After the visit, the car ride home was quiet. Finally, my brother spoke. She looked tired. She's been through a lot, I said. So have we. He wasn't wrong. But we'd made it through. Together. 6 months later, I got accepted into a night program to finish my degree. I dropped out when Mom first vanished, but now that things were stable, I decided it was time to go back. I'd major in accounting, funny, considering the past, but maybe because I wanted to understand how money worked, how people like my mom got away with things, and how to stop it from happening again. Tom agreed to keep me on part-time and work around my schedule. My brother was thriving, good grades, great friends, and big dreams. One night, I asked him what he wanted to be when he grew up. FBI, he said. I burst out laughing. He grinned. What? They're the good guys. Yeah, I said, still chuckling. They really are. I still get letters from my mom. Not often. Every couple of months. Sometimes she talks about a book she's reading. Sometimes she includes poems she's written. She never asks for forgiveness anymore. Just time. And maybe that's all healing is. Not forgetting. Not even forgiving. Just taking your time. Learning how to live again. Choosing to move forward, even when the road behind you is on fire. And that's my story. I'm not the same person I was when this all started. Back then, I thought betrayal was the worst thing that could happen to you. Now I know worse things can happen, like never trying again. But I did. And I'm still trying. Every single day. For me. And for the brother who still calls me Dad, by accident sometimes. And I don't correct him anymore. Because maybe, just maybe, I am